Welcome to our journey through Canada's past, a land of vast wilderness, diverse cultures, and incredible stories that shaped the nation we know today. From moments of triumph and discovery to tales of resilience and mystery, Canadian history is filled with events that will surprise, inspire, and even astonish you. In this video, we'll uncover 10 remarkable stories that reveal the spirit and character of Canada, like never before. Story 1. The Vikings in Newfoundland. Long before Columbus, before the French explorers, even before the name Canada existed, Norse seafarers reached Newfoundland. Around the year 1000, Leif Erikson and his companions built sod houses at L'Anse aux Meadows. They forged iron, mended ships, and traded, sometimes clashing, with indigenous peoples. Archaeologists rediscovered the site in the 1960s, unearthing Viking artifacts that proved the sagas were true. Europeans had touched Canadian soil 5 centuries before Columbus. Though the settlement didn't last, the story remains one of the most astonishing in world exploration. Story 2. The Rebellions of 1837. By the 1830s, frustration burned in both Upper and Lower Canada. Farmers, artisans, and reformers were angry at colonial elites, the family compact, and the Chateau clique. In 1837, armed uprisings broke out. William Lyon Mackenzie led rebels near Toronto, while Louis-Joseph Papineau inspired patriots in Quebec. Though quickly crushed, the rebellions sparked reforms. Within a decade, Canadians had responsible government, elected assemblies with real power. These small, desperate revolts changed the nation's democratic future. Story 3. The Klondike Gold Rush. In 1896, a few prospectors found gold in the Klondike. Their discovery triggered one of history's greatest stampedes. Tens of thousands of dreamers poured into the Yukon, braving icy passes, avalanches, and starvation. Most never struck it rich, but towns like Dawson City boomed, dance halls glowed through the long northern nights, and legends of hardship and adventure spread worldwide. The Klondike Gold Rush reshaped Canada's north, leaving behind stories of grit, greed, and frozen hope. Story 4. The Halifax Explosion. On December 6, 1917, a French munitions ship, the Mont Blanc, collided in Halifax Harbor. Minutes later, it exploded, the largest man-made blast before Hiroshima. The shock wave leveled the city, killing almost 2,000 people and injuring thousands more. A tsunami swept through the harbor. Rescue efforts were immense. Aid poured in from across Canada and the U.S. Each December, Nova Scotia still sends Boston a Christmas tree, thanking the city for its help. Out of devastation grew resilience and solidarity. Story 5. The Dion Quintuplets. In 1934, in a poor Ontario farmhouse, 5 identical girls were born. The Dion Quintuplets. They survived against impossible odds, becoming instant global celebrities. But fame turned dark. The Ontario government took custody, exhibiting the sisters in a Quintland compound, where millions came to watch them play. Companies cashed in on their likenesses. Though they lived into adulthood, the sisters later condemned their exploitation. Their astonishing story remains a cautionary tale about fame, privacy, and childhood. Story 6. The War of 1812 and the burning of Washington. Canada's colonial militias and Indigenous allies played key roles in the War of 1812. At one point, British and Canadian forces invaded U.S. territory, marching into Washington, D.C. in 1814. They set fire to government buildings, including the White House, The charred ruins were later repainted white, giving the residence its lasting name. For Canadians, the war became proof they could resist U.S. invasion. For Americans, it was a bitter humiliation. Story 7. The St. Lawrence Seaway completed in 1959. The St. Lawrence Seaway was an engineering triumph that opened the Great Lakes to global trade. Workers built locks, canals, and channels stretching over 300 kilometers. Entire towns were flooded and relocated. On opening day, Queen Elizabeth II and U.S. President Dwight Eisenhower sailed through together. The Seaway transformed Canada's economy, turning inland cities into industrial hubs. It remains one of the most astonishing feats of Canadian infrastructure. Story 8. The FLQ Crisis. In October 1970, the separatist Front de Libération du Québec, FLQ, kidnapped British diplomat James Cross and Quebec cabinet minister Pierre Laporte. Prime Minister Pierre Trudeau invoked the War Measures Act, sending soldiers into Montreal and suspending civil liberties. Laporte was later murdered. The crisis shocked Canadians. Trudeau, challenged by reporters on his drastic response, famously said, "Just watch me." It was one of the darkest and most dramatic episodes in modern Canadian history. Story 9. Terry Fox and the Marathon of Hope. In 1980, Terry Fox, a 22-year-old who lost a leg to cancer, began running across Canada to raise money for research. Day after day, he covered marathon distances on a prosthetic leg, inspiring millions. Canadians lined highways to cheer him. After 143 days, he had to stop. His cancer had returned. He died the next year. But the annual Terry Fox Run now raises hundreds of millions worldwide. His story is one of courage and hope. Story 10. The Canadian Caper. During the 1979 Iranian Revolution, 6 American diplomats escaped the U.S. Embassy siege and hid with Canadian Ambassador Ken Taylor. In a daring plan, they disguised the diplomats as a Canadian film crew. Using fake passports, they slipped out of Tehran in January 1980. The mission, later dramatized in Argo, was hailed as a triumph of Canadian courage and ingenuity. From Viking explorers to daring modern rescues, from devastating explosions to inspiring personal journeys, Canada's history is rich with astonishing stories. Together, these 10 tales reveal a country shaped by resilience, ingenuity, and human spirit.